Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Aarna, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. On today's episode.
Yeah, exactly. And someone told me this and that's just stayed with me. You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So if you don't experiment, if you don't fail, I was the same person. If I didn't get A's, I was like really type A and all of that, right? And now I wish I could have taken this subject or that thing that, I knew I wasn't going to be really good at. And I didn't because I was too afraid to fail.
Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Aarna, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today, I am pleased to announce our guest, Reshmi Krishna. Reshmi Krishna leads enterprise solution architecture for GitLab, where she significantly enhances customer solutions and drives technological innovation on their AI-powered DevSecOps platform. With over 2 decades of experience as an engineer and solutions architect, she has expertise in leadership, AI, cloud native technologies, digital transformation, and DevSecOps. Reshmi leads with empathy and enjoys tackling tough challenges. Beyond her work, she actively represents women in technology through public speaking, coaching, and writing blogs to inspire others to pursue careers in solutions architecture, aiming to make the field more inclusive. Her work shows how technology can solve real world problems and make a big impact. If you love problem solving and innovation, studying technology can open up amazing opportunities just like it has for her. So, thank you so much, Reshmi, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you, Arna, for having me on this show. My name is Reshmi Krishna, and I live here in the Bay Area in California. I'm a senior director of solutions architecture for GitLab, and I have been enjoying the world of working in tech and just learning from everyone around here. And I do have two young daughters as well, who I hope will venture into tech at some point in their lives.
I love that. So, my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
Yeah, sure. So, growing up, I really enjoyed doing a lot of things practically. So, I enjoyed maths, I enjoyed a lot of science, chemistry, physics, and just doing experiments. So, I remember in ninth grade, I was taking a computer science class, and then we had to program the game of Tetris. And that was almost the first time where I was able to write lines of code and I was able to see this game in action and I was actually able to play the game. And that was really, really fascinating to me. And from that point onwards, I developed love for computer science and I went in to complete my undergraduate and graduate degrees in both computer science. And my first job was as a programmer on Wall Street. I worked for a big investment bank. I learned a lot about trading and everything, about the field as well. And then few years into my engineering journey, I stumbled onto this career of, as you know, solutions architecture, or a lot of people call it pre-sales engineering. And it is not something that most career advisors know about or talk about. It's not something anyone really knows about. So in just what it is really you get to play around with a lot of different and cool products that your company develops, and then you take those products and then you take them to the companies that will help solve real problems for them. For example, on game day, you want to make sure that when Beyonce performs on NFL at Christmas Day halftime, the platform is able to scale to millions of users without, closing it broadcast or just going offline. So you're solving a lot of these really, really hard problems and you're solving it with technology. And the best part is the thing that really fascinated me was I didn't have to choose between being technical and being able to really solve these hard problems with people and being able to see these results really, really quickly. Because when I was a programmer, a lot of the code that I was writing would go into production. It would take a few weeks for me to really understand what the users are doing. And with the solutions architecture field that I'm in, I actually get to see a lot of these really cool problems. And I get to see how the technology that you're actually working on is solving these challenges.
I love that. That is so interesting. I mean, you started off with, programming a game of Tetris, and then it was interesting to you and you pursued that path. I think that's really, really cool. For me, I've been taking computer science classes in high school, so I can definitely get that, interest. I think that's super fun. And you just kind of delved into that and then you pivoted to, tackle this problem on like a real world scale. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and it was very fascinating and interesting, also scary, right? At first, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm like speaking in front of these big executives from these big companies. Am I doing everything right? Am I like, what am I doing? And then you just get the hang of it, and it's really exciting.
Absolutely. And my question for you is what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one is have a growth mindset. So be curious. And even when I'm two decades in this, uh, in technology, and I've risen to the leadership positions, and I always learn. I'm always learning. Every year I'm learning something. I have goals for myself. So never give that up wherever you are in your life. The second is being empathetic and kind is actually very important, not only for the people that you work with, but people actually also understand your positive affirmations and vibes that you're giving out. So, for example, a lot of the people I work with, they're dwelling in their day to day lives and they're coming with a lot of their problems, right? And when they speak to me, I want them to understand that I care about them. And it's not just trying to sell the product or the company that I belong to. So I'm not just trying to sell the product to them. So that's another thing I think is very important. And the third thing I will say, be yourself and be authentic because we're all different. And I really started to ask for a lot of advice and help. And whether it's mentorship, whether it's, sponsorship from a very early age in my career, because I realized that I don't know everything. And a lot of people around me were so willing to help, right? They were really invested in my success. So again, be yourself and ask for help wherever you need help. And I think that's another very important criteria as well.
I think that's really important because learning never really stops at one place. Like you might think that once you graduate high school or college, you think that, okay, I don't really have to read a book or I don't have to like do anything. But as you said, like learning can come from like talking to people, talking to mentors, and just being open to that and receptive to what that might entail is so important because, by getting help from someone else and being open to that, you kind of open yourself to a lot more doors of opportunity. And yeah, I think that's very important to know.
Absolutely. And technology, we are moving so fast. Like in the last 2 to 3 years, you see the rise of AI, right? Things of this nature will come across. So we have to keep learning for sure.
Absolutely, we have to keep learning. That's a good saying. And my question for you is what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Yeah. So pre-sales engineering or solutions architecture is very unique in a way. You do work with a lot of sales professionals in your industry. So the most common misconception you hear is, oh my goodness, I need to be really salesy, or I need to, now I will come across as a salesperson. That's not true. The second is, you don't need to be an extrovert because I do hear a lot from the folks I interview. Do I need to be really extrovert? And do I really need to be very, very loud and communicative? And the one thing I will say, I've seen a lot of amazing introverts who are really kind, who understand. Of course, you need to communicate with everyone, but you don't need to be loud. You don't need to be an extrovert. And another thing I will say is, a lot of the professionals I interview will say, do I need to know it all? Right? That's not true. You can learn and you can ask for help, and you do not need to know it all.
Absolutely. I think the media portrays like, sales being really like extroverted and as you said, loud. And that's why a lot of people think that going into a career, you have to be like one specific type of person to make it work. But, as you said, that's super, super false. Like you can be an introvert, but also like lead, like quietly, lead with empathy, lead with these types of qualities that not a lot of people see, but it still works because everybody is their own person. And so you can play to your own, you can play to your own unique strengths.
Absolutely. And it's very important to do that. Otherwise, it's very easy for people to understand if you're not genuine as well.
Absolutely. And if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
That's a very interesting question. So, the world has changed a lot over the last 20 years or 25 years, right? There's so many possibilities today. So the one thing I would really ask myself is, what am I passionate about? So I would not potentially put my career in a box, because when I was growing up, there were really few professions and, you had to kind of put yourself in a box. And today you don't have to do that. There's so many possibilities. So really starting with really the Venn diagram of what you're passionate about, what can make you achieve the goals that you want to achieve and the lifestyle that you want to lead as well. So if you know these three things and what is that Venn diagram, what is that median, if you can find that and pursue that career and see how you feel about it, right? So you can try different things and you can fail fast. So when I was growing up, I was not given a lot of freedom of failing. I had to succeed. I had to pick one career. I had to succeed. And yes, I did pivot, but then it was another thing of like, okay, if I fail, what do I do? I did have a backup. I can go back to engineering. But failure wasn't really an option when I was growing up. And today, because of so many possibilities, if you really understand what you're passionate about, where do you want your lifestyle to be, you can try and then you can fail fast and pivot. And really like don't be afraid is what I'll tell you.
I love that. Like, don't be afraid. And as a student, like from a student's perspective, it's really, really hard when you think of, oh, okay, if I don't make it in this way, then I pretty much failed and that's it. Like, you think that you have to take one thing and you have to run with it, but really, that's not the case. Like, as you said, it's much better to fail earlier than maybe later, and being open to these different opportunities that, like, okay, if I do this, then maybe I failed, maybe I don't, but at least I learned something about myself. Taking that option and that route is better than just going with something and running with it and not being receptive to other opportunities. So definitely like being proactive in planning your future and realizing that if that's something that I want to do, then that's something you should take, regardless of what the future might hold.
Exactly. Because see, we're in a world that's changing so fast. Professions are changing, everything is changing, right? So if you stick with something, you give it your 100%, and if you don't like it, let's say a couple of years down the line, that's okay. You can always pivot.
Absolutely. And what might seem as like a failure in quotes,
Yeah,
like 20 years down the line might not even be a failure. It might just be like a new like job market, might be a success, might be like what everyone is raving about. So like you should take the chance. Like if it's there and you want to do it, then like there really is nothing that should be holding you back.
that's right. Absolutely.
All right. And what are the best resources or books that have helped you find your career path?
Absolutely. So, I went into engineering, then pre-sales, then leadership. So, in terms of leaderships, I read a lot. So, I liked Radical Candor, the book by Kim Scott, Making of a Manager. It was a book written by Julie Zhu, who worked for Facebook. And then Multiplier by Liz Wiseman, who really teaches you that how, as a leader, you can create how can you scale yourself and how you don't have to do everything, right? Because when you become leader first time, you think that, oh, I need to now do everything, right? And that's not true. I'm also, as you can see, a brown woman in leadership. So I had to accept, there are different challenges that come with that, a lot of different things that come with that. So I really read a lot about that. I love the book by Indra Nui. She used to be the CEO of PepsiCo. She wrote this book of My Life in Full. And then I also read a lot of different books growing up, like by Sheryl Sandberg Lehman. I know people have a lot of mixed feelings about it, but there are bits and pieces, right, that you can take from that book. And she really talked about when you're growing up, the most important career decision you make when you want to get married is choosing your partner. And I can tell you that's correct. Because when you want to work full time, if you want to have kids at some point in your life, you really need the support of your partner and your family. So really taking those bits and pieces from all these books really helped me, shape my leadership. And of course, professionally, I also I learned a lot about sales. by reading these books called The Challenger Sale. It's by Matthew Dixon. Amp It Up by Frank Slootman, who used to be the CEO of Snowflake and Data Domain. And then also Great Demo by Peter Cohen, who really taught me how to demo my product in front of customers as well.
I love those books. I'm definitely gonna check them out. And I like how you said that even in books that might give controversy, there's still bits and pieces that you can
Right.
take. And I think that's really important because even though something might not be like the greatest that you might see, there's still something that you can learn from it. And I think, it just goes back to what we've been saying before about being like receptive. And if you just be open to that, then like you can see that there's things to learn. So from all these books, there is definitely something to learn about.
Exactly. And, I do listen to a lot of podcasts now, right? And a lot of that is open to interpretation. A lot of that is how you are now. You don't have to change your life 100% to be successful, right? You can start from wherever you are and you can make small changes, right? Iterative changes, and you can be consistent and you can learn. So I think that's the most important thing I've learned from these books is you're always a person in progress.
100%. And you should take things with a grain of salt, like that
Yeah,
saying. Like, if you see something, then just, okay, it's there, but then just see whatever is applicable to you and just go with that.
exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. And what do you think is the vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
Yeah. So I think the vital thing was empathy and really, really getting excited to solve hard problems for people, but with empathy. So I was never a person who pushed anyone towards any products, or I would show something, I'll say, does this make your life easier or harder? Right. So I came from that aspect, and I thought people could really sense my kindness. And I've had a lot of people tell me that. And that really shaped my career because growing up, I was told, Reshmi, you're too naive or you're too kind. And that actually worked for the best in my career, right? People were able to sense the kindness and then just really understand that I'm excited to solve their problems with them as well. And then before learning about this, I grew up with a lot of doubts. I grew up with issues about self confidence, about understanding if I'm good enough, right? And the more I learned about these aspects that I have and the characters that I have, and I had people who would talk to me about these different things about, just how I am and how it really helped them. It really helped me become a very confident person, right? And yeah, it has to do a little bit with external validation, but internally as well. I've learned a lot in the past 2 decades that if somebody told me something in high school, that's okay. I don't have to carry it with me throughout my life, right? That's not necessarily true. And I am who I am, and that's actually my strength.
I love what you said there. Like, I am what I am, and that's my strength. A lot of people would think, or a lot of people project saying that your kindness isn't like good enough and it might be your weakness, but in reality, that's your strength. Your uniqueness is your, strength. It's your identity. It's what makes you you. And every single person has something different to offer, and that's what makes, teams like super cool, super like multifaceted because people have different backgrounds and experiences. So, just be yourself, as we've said before, and, just play to your strengths. And, if you want to tackle this problem this way, then, you tackle it this way. That's who you are, and don't let other people like project onto you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you do evolve and grow as a human. You do grow and evolve as a person, right? So that's also important to learn because what you are in high school, you're probably not going to be the same person 5, 10 years after you graduate, right?
Absolutely. And because we have some additional time, my question for you is what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
I wish I'd experimented more. I wish I knew that it's okay to fail, as I was telling you before. Because, nowadays I look at all these different careers and different paths, and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done that or done this, right? Um, and then it's also nowadays you can have multiple careers. And that's something I'm scared about. But I wish when I began my career, I wasn't afraid. I experimented more and I failed faster, as I told you before.
I love that. Like, you wish you had failed faster, and you wish like I think it's really important to just like be open. And, for me, I'm really stubborn. So ever since I was a kid, I've never liked not doing something good. Like, I hated whenever I didn't get an A on my test, or I hated whenever like something wouldn't work out, like something really like dumb. But just telling myself that that's okay if it doesn't work out like that, or, maybe if it doesn't work out like that, then maybe exploring something else and just experimenting with other things and trying that out sooner. Because now that I'm realizing this, I kind of wish that I didn't have that mindset growing up, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And someone told me this, and that's just stayed with me. You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So if you don't experiment, if you don't fail, I was the same person. If I didn't get A's, I was like really type A and all of that, right? And now I wish I could have taken this subject or that thing that, I knew I wasn't going to be really good at. And I didn't because I was too afraid to fail.
Absolutely. And my question for you is, how do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things within your role?
Yeah, that's a great question. So nowadays, I do learn a lot. I do allocate 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night to learn. And my learning ranges in a variety of topic. So right now I'm learning a lot about artificial intelligence, of course. I'm also very fascinated by human psychology. So I always try to learn something which is relevant to my field and something that I want to learn, I'm passionate about, right? So at night I do learn a lot about like human psychology. And, interestingly, they have intertwined and they have made me things that I learned just outside of work as well. Like, for example, I'm really fascinated by human mind, human behavior, different culture. I just recently read a book about culture maps that talks about different cultures around the world and um, how people communicate around the world. Not really a lot to do with my profession, but it really, really helps me become this whole holistic person that I want to become. And of course, I have also learned a lot about parenthood growing up, just by reading books, because my parents have forgotten everything about raising children. So it's a lot about that as well. So I always try to switch my time between like professional learning and something that, I want to learn, which is a little bit outside my arena, just to understand and learn more about things I want to learn about.
I love that. And I like how you said that it's things that you want to learn. So, you want to do this, you want to read these books, and I think that's really nice because you're not like kind of forcing yourself, but it's something that you want to do like genuinely. And I think that's really admirable.
Right, right. And nowadays it's very confusing because you have podcasts, you have videos, you have books, right? So also understand that different humans learn differently. And I have experimented and I've seen that I learn better from podcast and by reading. I don't learn that much from videos. I don't know why. Right? That's another thing where I'm trying to learn why not, right? It's human brain and human psychology. So also experimenting different medias of how you learn and how you retain things is also very important as well.
Absolutely. I love that. Um, and before we end off, do you have any last words to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say one thing, you're all are very, very, you're the next generation, you're growing up, you're coming to the field. Just don't be afraid. Ask for help. Everyone is here. Everyone is cheering you on. I know the world can look very scary. I remember my high school days and looking outside, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is like scary. College is scary. It's a very, very scary experience. But all I can say is you're not alone. Ask for help from your family, from your friends, from people on LinkedIn. Everybody's there to help you, and people are cheering you on. So just don't be scared.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I absolutely love talking to you.
Yeah, it was absolutely pleasure of mine as well, Arna.
And here are my 3 cents on this episode with Reshmi. 1. Pursue your passions continuously. Even after formal education or entering the workforce, you should make time for activities and hobbies that bring you joy and fulfillment. This keeps you grounded and ensures that your life remains balanced and purposeful. 2. Embrace support and collaboration. Don't hesitate to ask for help when you need it. People in your life, mentors, friends, and colleagues are rooting for your success. Collaboration and seeking guidance can lead to growth and unexpected opportunities. And 3. Take risks and be open to growth. Trying new things, even when you feel unprepared or out of your comfort zone, builds resilience and confidence. Taking risks allow you to learn, grow, and unlock potential you might not realize you have. Thus, that concludes today's episode. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Dito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!